Hello, Shiver Seekers. Are you ready to follow us into the unknown? I'm Cynthia.
And I'm Stephanie. You have found the Dark Oak. In today's episode, we cover the unexplainable case of Carl Tanzler and his corpse bride.
Welcome to the Dark Oak, the mystery podcast with purpose. Each month, through our charity called the Branch of Hope Foundation, we give a portion of earnings from our Patreon and sponsors to a nonprofit organization related to the first episode of the month. To find out how you can be a part of the movement, head over to thedarkoak.com or stay with us until the end of this episode, and we will give you all of the details.
All right, Cynthia, are you ready for a wild ride?
Oh, am I ever? I am ready. I am strapped in and ready.
I told you to be prepared for this one. And honestly, it's a little out there and it's not our typical unsolved case. But honestly, we've been covering some pretty heavy ones. And while this is a disturbing tale, guys. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. It just doesn't quite have some of the heaviness. And it really is in many ways unexplained, as in I don't understand how it could happen. That's where we get the unexplained part here.
So, hey, that's all we need. We just need a mystery.
Yeah. So we're here to discuss the very strange life of Carl Tanzler. Carl Tanzler was born in Dresden, Germany, under the name of George Carl Tanzler on February 8th, 1877. He grew up in Germany, and the first indication that Carl may be different happened during his childhood. He claimed to see spirits and be visited by his dead ancestors in his dreams.
Okay.
And one night, a particular dead relative, which he may or may not have actually ever been related to, named Countess Anna Constantia von Kossel,
Wow, what a name.
a name, appeared to him and showed him the face of his true love.
Okay, if this did really happen, I mean, that's convenient. You avoid a lot of, breakups this way.
Well, the face of his true love was an exotic, dark-haired woman. I feel like that would really whet the appetite of most men. I don't know if this is that, like specific.
Now that I think about it, I'm blonde and fair-skinned, and if you asked my husband the face of his true love, he too might see an exotic dark-haired woman. So, okay.
Now, this truly shaped the rest of Carl Tanzler's life. So just
Oh,
keep
wow.
this nugget stored away.
Okay.
Now, Tanzler moved to Australia at some point, and he lived there for about 10 years. During this time, Tanzler became very interested in engineering and electrical work and supposedly completed several degrees. And as we'll see, his amount of degrees continues to go up over time without a lot of confirmed schooling, if you will. He just seems to collect degrees without a lot of substance, shall we say.
I think I'm picking up what you're putting down.
And according to Tanzler, while he was in Australia, he also bought property, he bought boats, and he very specifically bought an island in the South Pacific.
Okay. Well, what a successful person he is.
And again, this was all self-proclaimed.
Sure. Yeah, I'm figuring that at this point.
When World War I broke out, Tanzler, because of his German heritage, was placed in a, quote, concentration camp for his safekeeping, end quote. That's a very strange way to talk about your time in a concentration camp. And this was terrible. I hate that he ended up in a
And
concentration
this is
camp.
factual?
This is actual
Okay.
factual. He was definitely in a concentration camp. So this is definitely not a great thing.
Sure.
However, he did survive the war and he was released from the concentration camp. And after that, he returned home to Germany to reunite with his mother.
Okay.
While there in Germany, he met and married Doris Schaefer. Carl and Doris went on to have 2 children, Aisha, born in 1922, and Krista in 1924. Now, by 1927, Carl had decided to move his family to America, but he wanted to precede his wife and daughter so that he could secure a home for them before they actually immigrated to the States.
That makes sense.
It totally makes sense. It's one of the few things he does that actually makes sense.
Okay.
He first sailed to Rotterdam, Netherlands, and then to Havana, Cuba, before finally settling in Florida, where his sister had already lived for quite some time.
So local to us.
Local to us. His family followed and they set up a home in Zephyr Hills. It's like right around the corner from us.
Very local to us.
Very local. We could know some family members.
We might be family members.
Oh, I hope not. Now, the following year, he accepted a job as a radiology technician at the U.S. Marine Hospital in Key West. And this is actually a pretty prestigious job.
Sure, yeah.
And fairly lucrative as well. I don't know in the 1800s how many people would be able to be radiology technicians, but he was. Unfortunately, this meant he had to leave his family again, where he moved to Key West, but they stayed in Zephyr Hills. So how far of a drive is that? Like 8 hours? Something like that? 9 hours maybe?
Key West is, 8
Well,
hours
that's a
from
drive.
here.
I don't know how long it would take by horse and buggy. So
Oh, wait. From here, Key West is like
8 hours.
4 hours.
To Key West?
Nope. You are correct.
I think it's like 4 hours to Miami.
I am confusing Miami and Key West because it is 9 o'clock at night. Keep in mind, I used to live in South Florida, so I should know these things.
And also, I'm like, well, if he drove there, I'm like, wait, if he's not driving anywhere in like 1890, like, I don't know. I don't really know what's happening right now. We can't do this again. Now, by this time in his career, Carl began telling everyone he now had 9 separate degrees. Every year he just added one on. So
you don't add a degree every year you live, Stephanie?
Well, not to the extent that Carl did, because several of these degrees actually gave him the title of doctor.
Okay.
And he also felt that because he had this connection with Countess Anna Constantia von Kosel that had, appeared to him in this dream, that he should also have that connection of Count and Countess.
Okay.
So he has now changed his name to Dr. Count Karl von Kosel.
I love it.
I love it as well. Now, interestingly, even though he added Dr. and Count and von Kosel to his last name, he changed his spelling of his name from Karl to Carl to fit in more with the Americans.
I really have no words at this point for our dear Count.
Honestly, if I've lost you already, I don't know how you're going to survive the rest of the episode, because it only gets weirder from here.
I'm just like, in his reality, we just pick and choose whatever we want. I'm a Count and I'm a Carl with a C.
And I'm a Carl with a C. Maybe he liked the alliteration.
That's what I was
Count,
thinking.
Carl, Kosel.
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking, okay, it looks good. But then when you're like, no, to be more American, it just threw me.
Yeah. I mean, that was his excuse, is he felt like it's in a more American spelling and I want to fit in. I'm like, if that was the case, I would probably have dropped the Count and the von Kosel part. I don't know. Maybe I'm just, maybe I'm just splitting hairs. I don't know. Now, 3 years after he moved to Key West, he claims he caught the first glimpse of the woman from his childhood dreams. This exotic, dark-haired woman. Very specific.
Very specific.
Very specific. And not anything that anyone else would desire either.
No.
Yes.
Clearly, she is his
Unique.
and only his soulmate.
Very unique. Only his soulmate. And this was a real woman that had walked into the hospital. Her name was Maria Elena Milagro de Hoyos.
Okay.
And Elena was a Cuban American daughter of a Key West cigar maker, so a pretty well off family. She was born in 1909, and when she was just 17 years old, she married a man named Luis Mesa in 1926. Now, sadly, their marriage fell apart after Elena suffered a miscarriage,
Oh,
and Mesa basically just ditched her. He just left and moved to Miami, and he just left Elena with her family in Key West.
this poor woman.
Yeah, so her story kind of starts out not so great. Even sadder, Elena would contract tuberculosis, which
Oh.
at that time was incurable. So on April 22nd, 1930, she walked into the U.S. Marine Hospital for treatment.
And it was a done deal.
Now, just to put this all in perspective, at this time, Carl was 53.
And she's 26.
She's 20.
Oh, she's 20.
So I don't
Okay.
know if it was an immediate love connection for her, but it certainly was for him. He was like, I've waited 50 years for you, and now you are here.
So romantic.
And it was basically a done deal for him.
I mean, yeah. She's exotic and beautiful and has dark hair.
Now, Elena's case was pretty bleak with the tuberculosis diagnosis. And she had two living sisters, but almost everyone else in her family had been wiped out by tuberculosis.
Oh, that's really sad.
This was super, super sad. And I mean, Carl immediately was like, I will save you. Like, I will figure out how to cure incurable tuberculosis. And so even though he was actually only a radiology tech and not a doctor, which, he said he was somehow going to treat her.
What choice did he have, Stephanie?
He had to save his true love. So he started treating her as if he was a doctor. And, weird. And when I say started treating her, I mean, this was like above and beyond. He started smuggling out like x-ray equipment and electrical equipment and would just bring it to her home in an attempt to like treat her there. And he felt the need to save her because, again, he felt that they were like these star-class lovers and they were just predestined to be together. So there's no way she could die. And he was going to save her.
I mean, I love that he's trying to save her. And I also find it interesting that he's sneaking out x-ray equipment and such, and nobody's questioning him. I mean, hey.
I don't know how this happened either, but somehow he was able to smuggle out this equipment.
All right. Well, tell me he saved her.
Well, no.
Mm.
And honestly, I'd like to stop at this point to say, what on earth do you think her family was thinking when this 50-year-old dude just shows up with all this equipment and is like doing experimental treatments basically on poor Elena?
My mind, I mean, I don't know if this is accurate, but my mind kind of thought maybe they were so desperate for help that they were just thankful for help and maybe they didn't question it.
I literally think that's the only explanation to any of this, because the bottom line is other doctors aren't even offering to help because, again, it's incurable.
Right.
So maybe their hope kind of trumped any kind of weirdness that was coming out of it.
And they didn't realize he wasn't a real doctor, correct? I mean, according to them, they're just seeing a man show up with he's got the equipment.
And you know what? Maybe they just did have this suspended reality just to be able to be like, well, maybe there's somebody that can save her. So maybe, but it's still odd.
I will give it that. It is odd, especially since, well, I guess doctors probably did make house calls at this time. So
Probably.
but yeah, it is. It's strange.
Now, as it so happened, when he went into her home, he wasn't just trying to save her. He also started showering her with gifts of jewelry and clothing and professed his love daily to her and regularly asked her to marry him.
Not at all inappropriate doctor-patient relationship.
Which she declined.
Oh, she did decline.
Well,
That's
and also,
funny.
like, she's dying. Like,
Yeah.
it was a little weird. And keep in mind, she's also still legally married to her husband, who's now in Miami, And he has a wife and 2 children in Zephyr Hills. So, some conflicts. There's a few
Red
things.
tape.
Despite Carl's persistence, tragically, Elena de Hoyos succumbs to her illness on October 5th, 1931, at the age of 22.
That is really super sad.
Which is bullshit.
Yeah.
I actually hate this part. I hate all of it.
That's awful. I mean, so young, and just, no, that's bad.
Yeah. And it is said that she died laying on a brand new, very expensive and elaborate bed that was purchased by Carl. I guess all of the radiology technician money went to Elena, I guess. And after her passing, Tanzler paid for her funeral. But before Elena was buried, he had a death mask created. Are you familiar with the death masks?
I am. And you know what? I try to be really open-minded with, cultures and things like that, but they freak me out.
They're very strange. Are they still relevant in cultures now?
I don't know. Probably not, but I know they used to be.
Yeah, I'm really glad they've kind of got out of style here. So anybody who doesn't know, a death mask is basically a cast made of wax or plaster that's made from a deceased person's face. I would not want that. That's just my personal opinion. I don't mean to offend anyone if that's your thing, but that would not be my thing.
No, it's not mine. They never look right. First of all, it looks unnatural, and just I don't know. It's a little too morbid for me.
Wow, I'm glad to know there's such a thing.
It's the death mask. That's where I draw my line.
Now, once Elena passed away, Carl became even more obsessed with her, and he would visit her grave every day. And it wasn't long until he noticed that there was a bit of standing water around her grave. And he told the family that this water could seep into the grave and make Elena's body decompose quicker. Which again, I'm like, well, that's kind of how it goes, Carl. That's, what happens. But no, he would not stand for it. And so he got permission from the family to design and purchase a very pricey stone mausoleum, which he erected in the Key West Cemetery specifically for her remains.
Okay, I mean,
I will post pictures of this mausoleum because it is beautiful.
Okay. That's really nice.
It was amazing. I mean, beautiful, carvings, really beautiful. So I'm going to post a picture on social media about this because it was really nice.
But the family doesn't question why her doctor is doing this, but I guess they also knew he was in love with her. So at this point, we've gone beyond just that doctor-patient relationship. And
I think the daily confessions of love and marriage proposals probably, let them know something else was up, I imagine. But why they agreed to this, they probably should not have. Now, again, I mean, I think they knew he was nutty. I don't think they knew he was as nutty as he turned out to be.
Fair.
So Elena's body was placed inside the mausoleum in an airtight metal casket. The casket was also filled with a tank, which would provide a supply of formaldehyde to Elena's body to further slow the decay. Wow. Just let her go, Carl.
Okay, I'm thinking to myself, and I'm thinking, well, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm thinking at that point,
just let her go.
Is this important? But maybe for him it was, but for me, I'm just thinking, would this be important to me? I think, I would just let her go.
Just let her go.
That's the natural thing.
Let her go. Exactly. Now, for the next 2 years, Carl visited Elena every evening. He frequently serenaded her grave, singing her favorite Spanish songs, and he reportedly heard Elena's spirit speak to him as he sang. And in one of these situations, she asked him to take her home with him.
All right. I see where this is going.
In 1933, not long after he had been laid off from his job, which we aren't exactly sure why, but I could hazard a few guesses.
I don't know. Maybe the theft.
Lying about being a doctor, theft, just being weird.
Overall bizarreness.
Take your pick, really. Take your pick. But people started noticing that Carl wasn't visiting Elena's grave anymore. Carl's got all this free time, and it's weird because now he's not visiting, which he did for a whole 2 years. Weird, huh?
It's strange. I wonder why.
But no one could have prepared themselves for what was really going on at the home of Carl Tanzler.
I don't even want to know.
Dr. Count Carl Tanzler
Von
von Castle.
Carl with a C, thank you.
Yes.
Oh, no.
After dark on an evening in April 1933, Carl Tanzler crept into Key West Cemetery and removed Elena's body from her tomb and brought her home to live with him.
Again, and nobody saw the man carrying the dead body out of the graveyard across town. Like,
it was under cover of darkness.
Okay. Well,
cover of darkness. And because he had built the mausoleum, he paid for it and built it. He was the only one with the key.
Okay. All right. So I
to
can
the
see
mausoleum.
that.
So there was no way her family would know if she wasn't in there. And just one day she just wasn't in there anymore. And Carl was no longer visiting her.
Okay.
After 2 years of being buried, her body was moved again. Think about this. She actually was in a graveyard first. Then she was in the mausoleum. Now she's at his house. So the poor lady cannot rest. Just let Elena rest.
Yeah, it's really insensitive, really, what he's doing. I mean, that goes without saying.
That goes without saying. But no, I feel like we should say it.
But okay, all right.
We should say that.
I was like, this is too obvious. Why did you say that?
No, we need to ground ourselves right now because this is getting into just the world of it unexplained. I don't understand any of this. So we need to state real things.
Okay.
This is insensitive and just don't do it.
Don't do this.
Just don't do this. Don't be Carl Tanzler. So Carl Tanzler brought home Elena's body in a little toy wagon.
I was going to ask, what was he doing? Was he carrying her? But I have to say, a little toy wagon isn't the tool I envisioned him using.
No.
Somehow, no.
I will be honest, if I see a grown man pulling a toy wagon through a cemetery, I would be highly disturbed.
Thank you for that visual. As if I don't have enough scary things in my mind. Now I get to add that.
Again, we've talked about she's been moved several times, but essentially her body has been decomposing for 2 years now. And as you can imagine, it's not in the best shape.
Now, he's been doing something with formaldehyde. He had formaldehyde. How?
Yeah, I don't know the specifics of how well that helped preserve her, but I do know now she's no longer in the formaldehyde.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
And she's in the environment of Key West.
Right.
So we can talk about that. It's very warm. It's
humid.
Very humid. Lots of bugs and sea breezes. And anyway, so he brings her home, and he had actually moved a plane. It was like a body of a plane that he had moved onto his property, and he repurposed it as I hope this isn't insensitive, but a workshop of sorts to help reassemble her body. He first noticed that her bones weren't staying together, which
happens.
So he used a combination of string and rope, and some even say piano wire to attach them all to create an Elena frame, I guess. And next he noticed her eyeballs had lost their glitter. So he retrofitted them with glass eyeballs. And then he moved on to her skin, which, not doing so great. And he replaced missing patches with silk that had been soaked in wax or plaster to, fill it. Sorry, this is very, very hard to talk about, but everything had kind of been filled in there. And then, his exotic dark-haired woman, so she clearly had to have her dark hair. He constructed a wig out of the hair that was falling from her skull so that she could maintain her own hair. And he was a busy bee, just working away. And finally, he noticed the body itself was losing a bit of its shape. So he filled it with rags and newspapers.
I mean, I know I'm being quiet over here, but it's because I truly can't find words that appropriately express what I'm feeling right now.
Elena was dressed in clothing, stocking, gloves, and jewelry. And the final touch was her death mask, which was now her face.
I wonder if this is why he had the death mask made.
I think it's all a slippery slope,
Right. Or maybe
really.
he just, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Oh, wow. Are there pictures of this?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. And they're weird. They are disturbing. Now, Carl was seen in town purchasing women's clothing and, as you can imagine, gobs of perfume.
Oh, I didn't even think of that. I did not even
Mhm.
think of that. I truly
Mhm.
didn't.
Lots
Ay,
and
ay, ay.
lots of perfume.
Okay. It's unbelievable to think about, but if you actually think about what this man did, I mean, I mean, it's just so beyond the scope of what a normal, and I hate that word normal, but like a normal person would do. I
Who
mean, come
who
on.
thinks this is okay?
Who would want to do it? Like, es- especially on somebody you love.
He just felt they were supposed to be together forever and one way or another. I actually heard a podcast on this case and somebody brought up the term, like even if they were married, like, the whole phrase like till death do us part, like death has parted you. It's time to let that go. Just let that go.
Right, because the thing it's not like she can interact with him, she's not talking to him, she's not you know what I mean?
Well,
Like,
she was though. Remember? Well,
well, I mean, he did hear
so
her
in his
speak to him.
mind, she is. She's still with him.
Okay, so
And now she's with
with him with
him.
okay. Oh, alri I mean, okay.
I told you this is the unexplained
It
because
is
it's
certainly
unexplainable.
unexplainable. Yeah,
Explainable.
just I don't know words anymore.
Now, unfortunately, the perfume wasn't enough to really handle everything that's happening. So he also was reportedly used disinfectants and other preservatives to cover the odor.
But, I mean, again, like, the smell of a decomposing body, I mean, that is you can't get rid of that smell. You can't cover that smell. I
Well, he
mean,
tried.
he tried yeah. Now maybe the fact that it had been buried for 2 years, maybe because it's I would assume well into the decomposing, like, maybe that
Maybe.
helps. The worst is over, but I don't know.
I don't know. I, I'm glad I don't know.
I know, I was just thinking, yeah,
I'm
I
actually
don't
glad I
know.
don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah.
It's just I got a bridge too far.
Yeah.
Now, now Carl mostly kept Elena in his bed
Oh,
where
no.
where he slept next to her
No.
each night. Whoa!
Oh, no. Ugh.
There is also a report of a young boy saying he witnessed Carl dancing with a life-size doll in his home.
Well, that doesn't surprise me after everything else you've told me. I would almost expect
Oh.
it.
For the next 7 years, Carl Tanzler lived with the body of Elena de Hoyos.
And not to be inappropriate, but if he's dancing with her and sleeping next to her, who knows what else he is doing with her? You know what I mean? Like,
I,
are they eating together? Are they doing, I mean, who
I
knows?
do. Oh,
Oh,
no,
okay.
I do. I know what you're saying. We don't know, but I am trying to just the sleeping next to her. I do find that like that's the most disturbing. That's the thing we know for sure. I find that incredibly disturbing.
Well, yeah, because, sure. I mean, I don't even have to say why, but yeah. But dancing with her too is kind of
Yeah, okay, that probably would be weird
bothersome, and then
too.
I'm truly, like, I'm not trying to, like, be inappropriate. But if you're going to dance with her and you're going to sleep with her, I mean, what are you not doing with her?
It's just so horrible. My heart just breaks for Elena and then for her
Sure.
family. This is terrible.
Oh, her family, no, this is like being victimized.
Yeah.
Just
Yes.
terrible.
Now, eventually, rumors started to kind of circulate around the town of like, hey, Carl's doing something weird with this life-size doll in her house. And so one of Elena's sisters was like, you know what? I'm going to go and confront Carl and see what all this nonsense is about. So she walks over to Carl's home. When he greets her, she demands to be taken to the mausoleum and shown her sister's body.
So she's suspecting something.
She's suspecting something.
To want to see that her sister is in the mausoleum. She's wanting to.
Correct. And I mean, Carl just says, there's no need to go. Come on in.
He does not.
Totally does.
Come, I got her right upstairs. How convenient.
He does. He doesn't even try to cover it up. Like, say something is not.
Okay, so he's off his rocker.
Not right. And
he doesn't even realize, like.
He walks the sister up to the bedroom.
No.
And shows her this. Honestly, at this point, with so many modifications, I don't know what you call them. I mean, he's been working on Elena's body for 7 years. And so at this point, she just kind of looks like a life-size doll, honestly, like laying in the bed, right?
Sure.
So he shows the sister this, what she interprets as a life-size doll. Again, it's this like wax face and these like shiny glass eyes. Like, she's like, WTF, right? Like, what are you even showing me? And he's like, well, this is Elena. And she's like, what is wrong with you? So she immediately leaves and just contacts the authorities. She's like, I don't know what that crazy guy is doing, but I'm not for it. So they come, they arrest him. They take away this, again, doll that may be a corpse, and they take it for autopsy. And sure enough, they discover it is indeed the reconstructed, I don't want to say mutilated, I don't know the word for it, but I mean desecrated.
Sure.
A desecrated body of Elena. And her sister just almost can't even believe it. Because how could you believe that happened?
No, yeah, I can't believe it now. All these years later.
Also, a detail I forgot to add. When she came in and saw Elena laying on the bed, she was dressed in a wedding gown. Oh, yeah.
Did he change her clothes?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Regularly?
Yeah.
So that was just their wedding day or like their anniversary
maybe
or something?
Maybe an anniversary. Okay. Sure. Or maybe she just likes to wear a wedding dress in the afternoon. I don't know.
I like to take naps in mine, so that checks.
Oh, that checks. Poor Elena. Carl was charged with wantonly and maliciously destroying a grave and removing a body without authorization. A psychiatric evaluation determined that Carl was, get this, completely competent and sane.
What?
And completely fit to stand trial.
I'm sorry. You've been living with a reconstructed corpse that's been talking to you for 7 years. That right there, you cannot be sane and competent.
He was absolutely ruled sane. Now, I guess the good part of that is he could stand trial, I suppose, but
I don't think he
who
can.
Would say he's sane?
I don't think he should. He obviously has some mental issues going on.
Well, if you feel badly about this, just give it a minute, because as it turns out, these particular charges have a statute of limitations.
No. Oh, no.
And Carl is just set free.
Oh. Well, I don't think that's right either, because he's not sane and he's not competent. Like, he's a crazy person.
After Elena's autopsy, where it was confirmed that it was absolutely Elena, the weirdest thing happened. She was put on display at the funeral home.
What?
She was set out in the foyer like a tourist attraction.
Why?
I can't say.
There
honestly.
was no, and there wouldn't be, because, sometimes they've, I don't know, done drawings of bodies or recreations of bodies, like like Jane Doe's and things like that. Like, do
Sure.
you recognize this person? But
Sure.
we know who this is.
Right.
It
I
was
have
literally
no
just
idea. Outside of her just being an oddity that they wanted to share, I cannot think of any actual reason she was out there.
that's disgusting.
It's disgusting,
Yeah.
right? So people would come to see her.
And that's disgusting. Who would go see this? I like morbid stuff. I'm not going to see this.
There were school trips,
No.
field
Stephanie,
trips,
Stephanie, stop.
field trips.
No.
Journalists would come in droves to take pictures and to write about it. It was bizarre. It is estimated that some 7,000 people came to see her, just to oogle her.
How long
Is
was
it
she on
wasn't
display?
I don't know exactly how long.
Long enough for 7,000 people to come?
Yeah, I mean, it had to at least been for a week or two. And here's what's crazy. I don't exactly know the date she was taken off display because there was a huge fight about keeping her or not. There was a huge push of people that wanted to keep her on display.
Okay, now I will say this. I did go see the bodies exhibit. You remember the bodies exhibit that
Oh yeah, a few years ago.
and it's real bodies that I don't know how they got there. I assume they were donated or
Well,
something.
bodies that consensually donated themselves to science.
I assume, I don't know, but it's bodies in various stages of, I don't know, like bodies without the skin, and
Uh-huh.
they've gone through some scientific process, but they're real bodies. And that was educational. So I don't know, was this like considered educational, like keeping her on display? It's similar to like the way a mummy might be on display now. I mean, I'm not saying I agree with it, but I'm just saying maybe this was their mindset. Like you could go to a museum now and maybe see a mummy, or, go to the science center and see the bodies.
I
Is
mean,
that like their mindset?
maybe. What I know about her sister, though, I don't know that her sister would have given permission to do this.
Well, and that's awful.
Like, how did they get permission to do this?
Yeah, no, it's disgusting.
So it's like she just got violated all over again.
All over again.
I mean, here she's been in this crazy man's bed. She's finally freed, and now she's on display in like the city center.
Well, and the thing that gets me is truly like, who is signing the permission slips for their kids to go see this?
I don't know in the 1930s if they had a lot of permission slips like they do now.
I know. I was being funny, but the point remains.
Oh man. Okay, what's even crazier is there was a tremendous amount of support for Carl. There was a huge following that was compassionate towards what he had done because they felt like he was just a hopeless romantic. What choice did he have?
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, I love a romantic gesture. I really do. Keeping my body for 7 years and sleeping next to it, that's not doing it for me. Like,
no.
That's not the thing that fairy tales are made of.
That's not the thing. Now, eventually, Elena's body was taken down off display and was buried in a unmarked grave.
Thankfully.
In the Key West Cemetery. Now, of course, it was stated that it was just so, no other gawkers could come. But honestly, I feel like it's probably to keep creepy Carl away from her because in the trial, at the end of the trial, when he was getting dismissed, he was like, all right, great. Can I have Elena back?
How can they say he's sane? Like, it sounds like he's so, here's the thing about it. Like, he's not hiding it. He's so genuine. Okay, great. Thanks. Where's my wife?
Yes.
So that for me is like, okay, he clearly is suffering from some mental illness. Like, he's not okay.
No, he's not okay. And it was all summed up when he revealed his ultimate plan, which was to completely retrofit that airplane that he had been kind of reconstructing Elena in. And he referred to it as Elena's ship. And his grand idea was that he was going to put Elena in this airplane and he was going to make it work again so it would fly, with the idea that Elena in this airplane would fly high into the stratosphere so that radiation from outer space could penetrate her tissues and restore life to her form. So
He's either.
he genuinely thought she was going to come back to
Yeah.
life.
He's either the most brilliant mind or just a very sick man.
I think that's a nice way to put it. So, following the uproar surrounding the arrest and Elena's reburial, Carl returned home to his wife in Zephyr Hills, but his infatuation with Elena wasn't over. He reportedly created a life-size effigy of the young woman and lived with it until his death in 1952. Now, this part is a little uncomfortable, and just buckle in.
Oh, we're getting more uncomfortable. Now we're getting uncomfortable. Oh, no.
But about 30 years after Elena was discovered, it came to light and was revealed or reported, or I don't exactly know how to put this, but it was stated that during the autopsy, a tube made of paper was found in Elena's vaginal canal. And it is cringy, absolutely, but there is a chance that Carl may have also been involved in necrophilia. Now, he has denied it, and the only reason I didn't include this originally is because I do feel like it's very odd that it was 30 years after the fact that somehow this came to light, especially with that whole statute of limitations situation.
Okay.
Because I can imagine necrophilia, if it was indeed something he was doing, I imagine he was probably still doing it. Like, statute of limitations hadn't run out on that, so they could at least have prosecuted him for that.
Right.
So if that was really the case, you would think that they would have handled that
Right.
when it was originally found.
Sure.
So I don't know if this is just to add to the allure of this story. Again, Carl always denied any of that. But, I mean, you had kind of already insinuated. It's like, if he really thinks they're married and he really thinks she's with him, then...
I mean, if he's dancing with her and sleeping next to her. Now, the only reason that I would say, well, maybe not, is because he had no problems admitting to everything else, but then he won't admit to this. So maybe he won't admit to it because it really didn't happen. But it would be hard for me to believe that everything else you've told us was happening and that wasn't.
I see both sides of it, so I felt like I needed to add it in here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that was just added at the end. And maybe it was found out before. It's just they found it such a delicate, sensitive topic that they didn't disclose it. So that's a possibility too.
Could
for
be.
Sure. Now, in Carl Tanzler's final journal entry, he wrote, quote, "Human jealousy has robbed me of the body of my Elena. Yet divine happiness is flowing through me, for she had survived death forever, and forever she is with me." End quote.
I mean, the sentiment is beautiful. It really is. And there's no doubt that he obviously cared for her in a great capacity. I don't feel like it was healthy, but...
You don't feel like there was just like a hopeless romantic love story?
I would say this goes beyond that into the realm of unhealthy attachment. But,
possibly.
you know, I'm not the expert. But wow. Yeah, that's a lot.
Carl was a lot.
That's a lot.
Dr. Count Carl Tanzler von Kessel.
And don't forget, it's Carl with a C.
Carl with a C. I feel like that was the least of Carl's worries.
It was. Well, and quite frankly, okay, can we just, in all seriousness, it's going to sound funny, but in all seriousness, can't we just take the fact that, like, the name he gave himself, that alone just tells me, like, this person is not a sane person.
Or the degrees he just made up.
I'm just seeing this guy coming out of the hospital with an X-ray machine under his arm. Nobody.
I know. I love how everybody's like, for some reason he lost his job. And I'm like, go figure.
We're not sure why. Oh, Carl. Oy, oy, oy.
Yeah. So that's the story of Carl Tanzler and his very unfortunate corpse bride, which makes me so sad. Elena actually pictures of her. She looks like a genuinely sweet, beautiful person. And it just is so unsettling that this happened to her.
Well, she was robbed in life because she
Oh,
died so young,
absolutely.
but she was also robbed in death,
Yes.
of just a peaceful place to rest.
Yes. So there we go, girl.
Okay, well,
We did the thing.
that's something. That's something.
Unexplainable.
For that, the real mystery is here. How did any jury,
Yeah.
how did any doctor find
He's totally
him
sane.
sane?
Totally sane.
Wow.
No
Okay.
mental illness here.
None.
This seems, I mean, you have the smell of corpse on you, but, that seems totally normal.
He's
Who
just
doesn't?
a romantic.
He's just a hopeless romantic who wants to somehow rejuvenate his dead wife's dead. It wasn't even his wife.
No.
I'm like, actually, I take that back. It was just somebody they knew for like a couple months.
In fact, she really went out of her way to make it clear to him that she did not want to be his wife.
That's true. Oh gosh.
Oh yeah, which really does make it even worse. See,
Does that make it worse?
I keep forgetting that they weren't even dating.
Star-crossed lovers. They
No.
weren't predestined.
He was a stalker, is what he was. He was a stalker.
He was an absolute stalker. Oh, that just went way too far.
Wow.
So if anybody ever offers to build you a mausoleum, just decline. No, thank you.
That is the first red flag.
That's the first red flag.
Yikes.
With Carl, I think there was probably more than that. But in general, I think that's where you need to just be like, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Okay.
So, yeah, Carl.
Well, so I don't have nightmares tonight. Should we talk about our Branch of Hope report?
Let's do it. We're going to round out the month. Here.
All right. The true stories we tell here on this podcast do provide entertainment, some more than others.
Are you not entertained?
But we do want to show compassion and respect to the victims and their loved ones. And the Branch of Hope Foundation allows us to give back to the community, spread awareness about unsolved cases, and hopefully bring a little comfort and hope to those who need it. Each month, we will highlight a nonprofit organization related to the first episode of the month. And this month, it's the Amy Rowe Bechtel Scholarship Endowment at Northwest College. And we covered Amy's case the first Wednesday of June. A portion of proceeds from our Patreon and sponsors will go directly to this nonprofit, and you can get involved by donating directly as well. Their information can be found on our website or on our social media platforms. And you can also contribute by joining our Patreon, where a portion of your subscription will go to support the Branch of Hope Foundation. We are simply a podcast leading through words and actions. If you loved this episode, love us, or love what we are doing at the Branch of Hope Foundation, please like and subscribe and tell someone. Forward this episode to a friend who might like it because they are a weirdo.
I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, how would I take that if someone sent this episode and was like, hey, I think you might like this? Like, what part about that? No. I mean,
oh, come on. You would send this to me. You'd be like, hey, Cynthia.
I'd be like, okay, this is weird. This is weird.
Check this out. And I would be like, oh my God, how weird. Tell me more.
We probably would share with each other.
That's absolutely true. Would.
Okay, but here's the deal. Only share this particular episode with someone you know very well. Don't share it with an acquaintance because I don't know how that's going to be received, right?
And maybe don't share it to any exotic, dark, beautiful women that you're hoping to court because, you might frighten them.
I can just see someone with a text message, the link to this podcast, and it's like, I love you this much. It's like it should be in like creepy Valentine's Day cards or something like that. Right, I love you more than Carl Tanzler loved Elena.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Scary.
Oh, terrifying, honestly. Be sure to follow us to our next episode where we cover the very tragic and bizarre death of Kendrick Johnson. And it's been swirling around on our books for a little while. And I think we finally got to come out with this. Just a sad case.
Oh, it's awful. It's a rough one, but it's important. I think we need to cover it. So
Yeah. And so anyway, we're going to be back here with it next week. So not going to want to miss it, kiddos. All right. Thanks for listening, Shiver Seekers.
bye.
Bye.
This episode of The Dark Oak was created, researched, written, recorded, hosted, edited, published, and marketed by Cynthia and Stephanie of Just Us Gals Productions, and made possible by you, our shiver-seeking listener. Special thanks goes to Justice Himes for our incredible artwork and Ryan Crete for our amazing music.